and I'm a senior program manager at Microsoft. I work in the Windows User Experience group, and the team I work in is called Search View Command, and hence my talk today is going to be about integrating with the Windows 8 search experience. A quick look at our agenda for today. First, I'll talk to you guys about search in Windows 8 and give you guys a quick end-to-end experience. You've seen pockets of this from the keynote, and you've seen it repeated in several of the breakout sessions, but let me walk you through the end-to-end experience from how we've thought about it. Then I'll talk to you about the 3 easy steps it takes to implementing the search contract. Promise you, 3 easy steps, and I'll show you. I'm going to do a live code demo that shows that too. And then we'll look at search customizations you can take advantage of when building your app. And finally, I leave you with some best practices for building great search experiences when designing Metro-style apps. At the end of this talk, you're going to leave with examples of how to build great apps that integrate with Windows Search. So my talk might run the full length of the hour, and I do want to be cognizant of the next talk that's going to come in here. So my colleagues over there are going to be available at the Expo booth along with me. We'll get there straight after this. We'll be at the Great Apps booth, and we're happy to field any questions, comments that you may have. So let's get started. What's so special about search? Search is ubiquitous. Users often search to find the content they care about, be it on the web, local machine, network, or in an app. When we were thinking about the search experience for Windows 8, we started looking at how are people searching in the PC. So the most obvious thing that came out from all of the telemetry data we analyzed, and just basically how we use it, is search is a great tool to be efficient. Like, we go and use search to filter down really large lists of information, like apps, to find and launch them. But when you look at why you want to search on your PC, it's often sometimes because you've saved that file somewhere. You don't remember where you put it or what that name is. And search is really a great tool at helping you find that information. We've also found when you search for settings, you just remember the keyword, but you don't know where it's listed in that deep nested control panel structure. So search is also a great way to help you find settings. But that's all great when you want to search the PC. When you think of search in the broadest sense, you think of web search, right? We all have our favorite search engine we use on a nearly daily basis to look up the latest information like weather and stock quotes, or to even research a new topic. And now increasingly, instead of just web search, we're searching in apps. We're searching in apps to find movies to watch or products to buy. But the challenge today is that apps have all this great, rich content, but as a user, I have to first go find and launch that app before I can start searching in it. As app developers, we want to make our rich content in our apps easily available via search, just like it is, like via web search. So how do you do that? By implementing the search contract. The search contract makes your app searchable from anywhere in the system location. And how this is shown in the user experience is via the search charm. You saw Jensen's talk on Tuesday at the keynote, where he showed you the charms that come up from the edge, and the search charm is one of them. Search is lightweight, contextual, and it unifies all these various locations that users searched in that I just talked about. So let me show you what I mean by quick demo. I'm going to switch over to my demo machine. And I'm here in the start screen. So first, let me show you how we thought about search on this PC. To begin searching, I simply swipe the edge and tap on the search charm. Search is contextual to the app I'm in, and this is also true of system locations. And what I mean by system locations is if you look at the 3 green tiles below the search box called Apps, Settings, and Files, they represent the 3 places I can search for apps installed on my PC, settings on my PC, or files on my PC. And because I was in the start screen when I swiped open the charms bar and tapped on search, I'm now seeing all the apps installed on my PC. In fact, here's a full list of all the apps you'd see. In case you're wondering why you couldn't find Notepad on your start screen, simply swipe the edge, tap on search, and you see your whole list of installed apps. So I want to find the Notepad application. I simply start typing, and you notice my view quickly filters down to only show me the programs that matched my search term. And take a look at the system scopes. You'll now notice that they've been updated and they're showing me a set of counts. These are great cues because now it's telling me I have about 45 settings on my PC and I have about 95 files that match my search term. And with just one tap, I now get to see all the settings. Great. I can turn notifications on or off, or I can figure out how to get the notifications icons suppressed in my system tray. And again, just one more tap on files, and now I'm seeing all the files on my PC that match my search term. This is pretty powerful because if you think about the 3 different views that we've just created for you, look at the way we've represented the results. For apps, it's just the icon and the name. For settings, it's the name of the complete task. And we also match on potential keywords that you guys used to remember to find those settings. And with files, it's not just the icon and the title, but it's also the metadata and the content where the search term might have matched. We also give you a great set of filters. So I only want to find documents that match my search term. Just one tap on the filters for documents, and that's all I'm seeing. And you'll notice we pull out a summary of the content, and we highlight where the search term matched. So there's one additional thing I'd like to show you about the file search experience. And this thing we call, this feature we call it to be search suggestions. So I'll give you a little bit of an anecdote. So last night, you guys went to the party, right? Some of you went to check it out. There was this band called Viper Creek Club. And I wanted to check them out because I've been hearing about them this whole conference. I was like, all right, great, I get to go check them out. Fortunately, I had to head out a little early, prep for my talk this morning with you guys. So my friend David was like, hey, they're a great band. You should check them out. He downloaded some of their music on my PC, and I just want to find out where he saved them because I wasn't paying too much attention. So as I start typing in the search box, you'll notice a set of suggestions appear below there. These are search suggestions that are powered by the system indexer. They're search terms based on the content and metadata found in my files. So now I'm no longer guessing for what the name of the file is, because as I start to type, I quickly jog my memory. I remember what the name of that file is. So I see Viper Creek Club is offered up as a suggestion. I simply tap on it, and now I'm seeing all the files that David saved on my machine. Great. That's all their music. So I've shown you the experience for searching for content on your PC. It's consistent. You always swipe the edge and invoke the search charm. But what about those other locations users often search in? What if I want to search the web? If you look below the system locations, you see a set of other locations listed there. And what they are Windows Metro-style apps that have implemented the search contract. And by simply installing these apps, they automatically show up in the search charm as a place for me to go search. I had to do no additional configuration to have them show up here. So I'm curious to see what people thought of the band from last night, because I didn't get to check them out myself. One tap on Tweetorama, that's all. And now the Tweetorama app is launched, and it's running, and it's showing me results for Viper Creek Club. That's pretty cool. Now, I want you to note that this is the Tweetorama app. Windows has gotten out of the way and lets the app wholly control their search experience. Traditionally, in our classic platform, you would supply all the content, and we would have to represent it in the lowest common denominator that we would understand. As apps, you know your users best. As you know your content best. We make it easy to search your app from anywhere in the system. So great, I'm seeing results for Viper Creek Club and Tweetorama. People seem to like them. Looks like they're going to be playing in New York City. They also have a Twitter account I can follow. I wonder if they're going to be coming to a location near me in Seattle. Again, swipe the edge, tap on the search arm, and this time, I select the Bing app. And you'll notice this is the Bing app launched and running and showing me results. And right off the bat, I see the first link is their official website. I can see their concert calendar. I guess they have a Facebook page. I can check out some videos. It's pretty cool. Remember, I no longer have to go and find and launch that application and retype my search. The search charm, all it does is one tap, launches the app, and redoes the search automatically for me in there. Earlier, I mentioned search is contextual to the app you're in. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm in this Bing app. I'm going to swipe the edge and tap on search again. And you'll notice the search box is going to be scoped to the Bing app. The header says search Bing. And when I want to search in the Bing app, let's say I'm in Anaheim, and after my talk, I want to go to Disneyland. How do I get there? As I start typing, you'll notice a set of suggestions appear below the search box. This time, it's the Bing app that's applying these suggestions. The last time I showed you a similar experience, we were in the file search view, and I was showing you how as I was typing, and we were showing you suggestions based on the content and metadata. in your files. This is suggestions from the Bing app. And these terms help me quickly autocomplete my query to find results in Bing. Great. I see Disneyland. I type it, tap on it, and now I'm seeing results there in the same app. You'll notice the app results look just the same like they did with Viper Creek Club, and they have the flexibility to show the content as they please because it makes sense for them to show a map. They can show a map. They can show a link of results. Windows gets out of the way here. Apps wholly control their search experience. And because the search results view look the same, another point you guys can probably notice, you just only have to build one search experience that's universally accessible. You don't have to build one search experience to integrate with the search arm and something entirely different when users want to search in your app. Just build it once. So I've shown you one type of suggestions that the Bing app is supplying. Let me show you another type of suggestion that apps can supply. I'm going to switch over to the Socialite app. Oops. Let me try that one more time. So I'm in the Socialite app, and this time this app is searching over my friends and pulling my latest feed from Facebook. So as I start typing, the Socialite app starts to return a set of suggestions coming back from their service. Seems like I'm hitting a bit of a snag here, so I'm going to switch over really quickly to my second demo machine so you can just get a quick visual of what this looks like. So I'm going to open up the search arm and tap on Socialite. And this time, as I type in the search box, you'll notice a set of result suggestions coming back. Result suggestions are strong or exact match results that occur within the app. And they're different from query suggestions. A, because visually there's an icon, there's a thumbnail that's representing what the result's going to look like, and it has a title. And when let's say I select one of these result suggestions, I'm going to tap on my friend Steve Ball here, I'm going to see his profile. I'm going to see his details of what he's been up to recently. So result suggestions don't take you to a search results page. They take you directly to the details. So coming back to it, I've talked to you about the two different types of suggestions apps can supply to customize the search experience in the search arm. And I've shown you how the search arm unifies all these various search locations together. So really, in Windows 8, when we reimagined the search experience, we didn't just focus on the PC and the web as different components. We've seamlessly unified them into one experience. Search is universally accessible. It's contextual to your app. And it's always just a single swipe away. Let me just quickly recap. When I did my user experience demo, I just want to point out the key components that I'm going to be talking about when I go through the code demo. First thing is obviously the search box, right? The search arm has a search box, and it's scoped to the main app on screen. And the main app on screen must have implemented the search contract for that to happen. The next thing below that is a set of query suggestions. And these query suggestions are also supplied by the main app on screen. Below the query suggestions, you see a list of Metro-style apps. These are my installed Metro-style apps that have implemented the search contract. They automatically show up once I install them, no additional configuration necessary. And then the other type of suggestion apps can supply are result suggestions. And this is a great way to get the user quickly and efficiently to the most obvious or most relevant result while they're typing in the search box. You use them to indicate a strong or exact match result. And if you're going to supply a result suggestion, you have to supply a thumbnail and a title. So I've walked you through the end-to-end experience. I've talked you through the core components of the UI model. So let's talk about the 3 easy steps it takes to implementing the search contract. And for that, I'm going to switch over to my demo machine again and show you a code demo. So I wrote a sample app, and my sample app's written in JavaScript, and all it does is it pulls some interesting pictures from Flickr. So I wrote this app because I recently got into photography. I bought a digital SLR like everyone did, and I thought I would just take great pictures right off the bat. I ran around town taking lots of pictures, and it turns out 1 in every 200 came out great. So there's more to this, right? There's more technique. I need to know how to compose my picture, how to do post-processing. So the Flickr Interestingness feed is my inspiration list. And all it's doing right now is it's pulling interesting pictures from Flickr and showing them in our list view control. I'm not going to go into the details of the list view control because there are great talks on that. A great talk happened on controls yesterday, and I'll point you to some more of them at the end of my talk. My app has not implemented the search contract at this point. So when I swipe the edge and tap on the search arm, you'll notice it says Search Bing. my app doesn't even show up as a search location in the search arm. So when the main app on screen has not implemented the search contract, the search arm defaults to the first application in that list. And in this case, I search Bing very often, so I've just pinned it so it shows up at the top of the list. Here's how I would pin it. I press and hold on a tile, and I get an option to pin it, and then it moves it up to the top. I'm not going to pin right now. So what I do want to do is I want to have my app show up as a search location here. So let's come back to my solution, and let's stop running it. The first thing I'm going to do to add search is right-click and say Add New Item. And this gives me several options. It shows me several templates. I can do a detailed HTML page or pick from several contracts or templates that exist. The search contract is a template that's already provided for us as part of this Visual Studio solution. Great. So notice I've written my app in JavaScript, so it's showing me all the JavaScript templates. But if you've written your app in C#, C++, any language of your choice, the same templates are also available to you. So I'm going to click Add. And this is going to automatically create 3 files for me. It's going to create search.css, search.html, and search.js. And these 3 files combined represent my templated search results view. And I'll show you what that looks like really quickly. You'll also notice my package manifest file got modified, and it says there's a supported declaration now called search. So I'll just show you what all of this really means. It's simpler to show than to sort of go through the details verbally. So I run my app this time. And when I swipe the edge and tap on the search arm, my application shows up as a search location. Simple. All I did was right-click, Add New Item. My app is registered for search, and now it shows up as a search location here. This is the first step to integrating with the search arm and making my app searchable from anywhere in the system. So let's say I do search for something here. I'm going to search for pictures of a cat. I hit cat, and now I see a templated search results view. This is all fake data, of course. You'll also notice off the bat my back button's a little bit misaligned. I'll fix that. So let me just walk you through what the templated search results view we've provided for you is all about. First, it says results for cat. It automatically knew the query I'd entered in the search box, and it's showing it in the view. And below that, I have an opportunity to provide filters that map to the content that I'm showing when I'm searching whichever website or web service I'm searching in. And then my results below that are laid out in a grid. When it comes to showing search results view, there are like 2 common ways of doing it. It's either a list or it's a grid. And search results typically have a very fixed reading order because results come back ranked by relevance, strongest match to weakest match. So if it's a list, you're going to read top to bottom. And if it's a grid, what's interesting to note, in Metro-style applications, our grid reading order goes from top to bottom, left to right. So I have my templated search results view. What I really want to do is provide data from Flickr, because my app is showing me interesting pictures from Flickr. So let's go and modify this template so it shows me how I'm going to render the results as it comes back from Flickr. The first thing I'm going to do is open up the search.html page. Let's zoom in a little bit so everyone can see. And the template already has something called an item template defined. And the item template is going to be used in the list view control's item renderer. Again, I'm not going to go into the details of how the list view control works, nor am I going to talk about the details of the item renderer. Just to give you enough context, what the item template is doing is it's defining how I want each of the results to show up in my grid. Great. I have a div here, and it's telling me that I'm setting a background color. What I really want is to provide an image from Flickr. And let's change that, what the property it's going to be binding to is. I'm going to be binding to the image source. My template also offers several options of providing subtitles or additional description. My results from Flickr is not going to come back with all of that, so I'm just going to drop all of these additional things because I'm not going to use it. So I've modified my template, and before I forget, let's fix that back button because it was a little bit misaligned. Now, I come to the search.css file, and if you remember, I now have one div called item template content that's going to be showing my title. I need to set the font size, the font color, height text, etc. So that's that. Let me show you all the changes I've made so far. So I run my app again. This time, when I swipe open the edge and tap on the search arm, first thing you'll notice is the last time I did a search for cat, My search history is recorded in this app, and it's shown automatically below the search box. So Windows does all the heavy lifting for you. Here we capture your previous searches and we automatically surface it right below the search box so the user can easily requery. They don't have to retype in a touch keyboard. You don't have to worry about how to store, capture this, and give users a way to clear it. We have all that functionality built in. So I simply tap on cat again, and this time you'll see my updated search results view. The back button's fixed. I no longer see gray color blocks. In fact, I just have broken images, but that's okay. I have to pull real results from Flickr and pass it in there. And my title's been updated as well. Great. The layout suits what I want to show. Let's get some real data in here. So I come back to my solution. And this time, I'm going to open up the search.js file. You'll notice there's a lot of functionality already in here because I'm using the Visual Studio templates. I'll tell you what they all do, but for now, let's kind of focus on where I need to go add the real data from Flickr. So I scroll all the way down, and you see there's a function here called search data. There's even a comment to do, perform the actual search of your app's data. So here's my marker. This is where I need to be. And all the functionality right below here, this is all just placeholder functionality we've put in that created that gray background, created some fake titles, etc. So let's drop all of that. So what I'm going to do is query Flickr. So the first thing I need to do is create a URL to connect to Flickr's web service APIs and pass in the query text that the user's entered. So I do that. The next thing is to actually do the web service call. And what I'm using here is the Win.js library that comes as part of every Visual Studio templated solution. And the Win.js library is great. It helps me use the controls, get the Windows 8 look and feel when I'm styling my app. But it also comes with a lot of great utilities like this XHR helper method, which is for XML HTTP request. And if you remember from all of our earlier talks, our APIs are async, right? So that means when my XHR function returns, returns from completion, the logic in the then block gets executed. So I have two functions here. What happens when I get a response from Flickr, and what happens in the case of an error. Now, Flickr's response is going to come back in the JSON format, which is pretty convenient because I can just use json.parse and get the results. Once I have that, the response from Flickr is interesting. It doesn't come back with actual images. It doesn't even come back with URLs to the images. It comes back with a set of properties. So I have to take each of these properties and stitch them together to build the actual URL to each image. So that's what I'm doing next. Now, I've created an array called data, and this is my array of search results. And my array of search results contains two things, the title of the image and the URL to the image. That's it. So far, query Flickr, build an array of results containing the title and the URL to each image. Then I display it in the UI. To display it in the UI, I create a results object, and I just set two properties. I get the filters that I want to show in the view and the array of results that I want to show in the view. I have a helper function to help me get the filters. So let me show you how we actually display the results in the view. To show the results that I've created in my data array, I just get the list view control from search.html. And the list view control's data source is now pointing to my array of results that I created from parsing all the results from Flickr. And then that's it. I show the filters in the UI. That's all it took to show all of my results. But let's just go back really quickly. Because I'm using the Visual Studio templates, let's see where search data is being called. So search data is being called up here in this function called handle query. And if I look at it, it was expecting search data to come back synchronously with the set of results. But because I'm making a web service call, this is all done async. So I'm just going to drop all of this logic where I'm getting the list view control in here. We moved it to my helper function. So we can just drop all of this. And that's it. So the core thing that you guys have to just remember is if you go to the search data function, that's where you can supply the logic to query your actual web service or whatever your data store is to show results. So I'm running my app one more time. And this time, when I swipe the edge and tap on the search arm, I'm going to choose my search term again, cat, from search history. And now I'm seeing real results from Flickr. That's all I had to do. Using the Visual Studio templates, I already had a grid layout defined for me. I modified the grid layout to suit the type of results I'm going to be showing. And then the only logic I needed to implement was to query Flickr, parse the results, and then show them in the grid. Pretty cool. Now, what I've done right now, all that other functionality that was in the search.js file, What it had done was actually knew that the user had entered a search term, and it told my app, hey, the user's entered a search term, navigate to your search results view. And what that event is it's called query submitted. So that event was already hooked in, we registered for it, and we knew to navigate to our search results view. There's another event for search that's also important. Let's say I'm in that Bing app. I'm not even in my app. You'll notice my app is showing up as a search location. Let's say I started searching in Bing. But instead of completing my search in Bing, I just decided I actually just want to see results from my app. So I tapped on my app from the search arm. In this case, my app was activated for search. I didn't get the query submitted event. I got a search activation event. And that, again, informed my app, hey, we're going to be activating you. We're going to make you the main app on screen. Navigate to your search results view, and here's the query text the user entered. So those are the two events that have automatically been plumbed through and wired up for us because I used the Visual Studio templates. I'll walk through those events in a little bit more detail again. But you'll notice when I was searching in the Bing app, I saw a set of suggestions. Let's say I'm looking for sunset pictures. As I type, I don't see any suggestions appear here. In fact, my app feels a little bit dead, non-responsive. So I don't even know if I'm going to get results for this. So how do I provide suggestions? So let's come back to my solution, and let's stop running it. This time, in order to provide suggestions, what I need to do is register for the query submitted event. So let's just say here, I'm going to make sure we're clear. We're providing suggestions to the search pane. And what I want to do is register for the suggestions requested event from the pane. And my event handler is also called suggestions requested. Let's define what my event handler is going to do. My event handler expects, of course, the event as a parameter. And the first thing I need to do from here is get the query text from the event args. This is basically the search term the user's entered in the search box. And the next thing I get is the search suggestion collection. So whatever suggestions I'm supplying, I add it to the search suggestion collection, and it shows up in the UI. You can, of course, supply suggestions from anywhere. Like if you have a static list that you want to supply suggestions from, you can iterate through your static list and see what suggestions match and supply them. You can also read it from a file. Most often, you're going to supply it from a web service, right? So in this case, I'm going to show you how you can supply suggestions from a web service. For the purposes of this demo, I'm going to be querying Bing. I'm going to be using Bing's web service APIs to supply suggestions while the user's typing in the search box. Of course, when you're building your app, you want to use whatever web service makes sense for your data. So I have my URL to query Bing. And then the next thing that's important to note here is because I'm going to be making a web service call, I have to indicate I'm supplying these suggestions asynchronously. And the way I do that is I use the event request get deferral method. So I have my URL to Bing. Next thing I do is make the web service call. Again, using the same XHR library that I pointed to earlier. Once I get the response from Bing, I can parse it. And Bing's response is also in JSON, which is pretty convenient. You just use json.parse. And what's also convenient about the Bing suggestions is just two parts. It tells me what I typed in, and it comes back with an array of suggestions. So I just validate that I actually got results from Bing. And then I use append query suggestions, and it passes in the entire array of suggestions that came back from the Bing Web Service API. And this is the final and important step. Because I was doing it asynchronously, and I said get deferral, once I'm done supplying suggestions, I call deferral.complete. This signifies I'm done supplying suggestions, and they can show up in the UI. So let's run my solution now. So this time, I'm in my app. I swipe the edge and tap on the search term. As I start to type, I now see suggestions coming back from Bing Web Service API. That's pretty cool. So now my app is starting to feel a little bit more responsive. And yeah, it's plugged into the search term, so I know I can confidently search in here and find results. So let's say I even tap on sunset as a search term. The entire query sunset is passed to my app, and I navigate to my search results view, and I show you all the pictures from Flickr that are sunset pictures. That's pretty cool. I don't know, I'm pretty excited so far. My app is looking great. The one additional type of suggestion you can also supply are called result suggestions. Remember when I showed you the Socialite app, I was showing you a result suggestion of all my friends? What if I wanted to show result suggestions from Flickr while I was typing in here? How do I do that? So let's come back to my app and stop running it. And in the same event handler suggestions requested where I defined where I was getting suggestions from Bing Web Service API, I'm going to take all of that logic and just delete it. Now I want to query Flickr, and I want to get results from Flickr and show them as result suggestions. So the first thing I do is construct my URL to query Flickr. I have a helper method that does this. And there's nothing special about this other than it limits the number of results I want to get back from Flickr to 5. So the maximum number of suggestions we will show you in the search charm at any time when you're typing is 5. So even if I supply 500, we're only going to show the first 5 in the search charm. So I want to be efficient and not build out that many result suggestions. Again, I'm making a web service call, so the suggestions are going to come back asynchronously, so I call getDeferral. Once I have that, now I can make my web service call to Flickr. And again, I'm just using the same XHR library that you've been seeing me repeatedly use throughout this code sample. And I'm going to get my results back from Flickr. They're, again, JSON format, so I just parse them. And let's validate that I actually got results before I try and create any result suggestions from them. So I validate I get results. And like last time, I need to build out the URL to each image on Flickr, because all it returns in its response format is a set of properties, and I need to stitch them together to find the actual image. So why do I need the image? Result suggestions, you must supply a thumbnail. And the search pane APIs accept the thumbnail as a stream reference. So you can create a stream reference from any data type. You can create a stream reference from an actual stream. You can create a stream reference from a file item that's returned if you use one of our storage APIs. Or you can also create a stream reference from an actual URL to an image. So I have a URL to an image on Flickr. And so the next thing I do is I get the image URI using the Foundation URI APIs. Then let's just validate I got an image URI back. And then I can create a stream reference. So I use create from URI to create a stream reference. And now I'm finally ready to start creating my result suggestions. So to create result suggestions, you use the append result suggestion API in the search suggestion collection. And it takes 5 parameters. The first parameter is the title. The second one is the description. And in this case, it's optional, so I'm just leaving it blank because I don't have any descriptions of these images coming from Flickr. The third parameter is interesting. It's called result tag. And result tag is how you know what the user selected in the search charm, so you know to navigate to your search results page, the details page of that result. And in this case, I'm just going to supply the path back to the image so I can show that. The fourth is this stream reference for the thumbnail. So image source was the variable that holds my stream reference, so pass that in. And finally, just set the alt text so the user knows what that image is all about. Remember, like last time, we're making a web service call. So to indicate you're done supplying suggestions, call deferral complete once you're done. Now, let's run my solution and see how result suggestions show up. So I swipe the edge and tap on the search charm. And as I start to type, I'm now seeing results from Flickr show up in the search charm. That's pretty cool. These are the first 5 results that were showing up in the search results view when I was just searching Flickr just by entering the search term cat. Remember, if you are going to supply result suggestions, you must take the user to the details of the result that they chose. And in order to do that, you need to register for an event called result suggestion selected. And that's where you get the result tag information back, so you know the details of which item to show in your app. So far, I've walked you through the 2 different types of suggestions you can provide if you're querying a web service and show them in the search charm. But let's say my app wasn't pulling images from Flickr. And in fact, it wasn't even pulling data from a web service API. It was showing me pictures from my pictures library. So there's a great talk in the afternoon you should go check out. It's called Building Great Gallery Apps, that shows you how to pull content from your libraries and use the list view control to display them. So let's assume that for a moment that my app right now is showing me pictures from my pictures library, and I want to search over the content in my pictures library. How do I provide suggestions in that case? So let's come back and take a look. I'm coming back to my solution, and let's just stop running it. So earlier, when I showed you the file search experience, I showed you that we have the system indexer supplying suggestions. So I have a set of albums on my machine called Birthday Party. And as I start to type, you see that album name show up as a suggestion. So when I tap on it, here's all the results that match Birthday Party. I want those same set of suggestions to appear in my app because I'm going to be searching over my pictures library. So how do we do that? So I'm back at my solution. First things first, let's just zoom out really quickly. Oops. All of this logic that I added to register for the suggestions requested event, define my event handler, provide results from Flickr. I'm just going to delete all of that. Gone. All I need to do now, if I'm going to supply local content suggestions, which is suggestions based on the metadata and content of the files in my library, is to enable a setting. And the setting is called local content suggestions. That's it. This time, Windows does all the heavy lifting for you of knowing that the user's typed in the search box and supplying the appropriate set of suggestions based on the content in your file system. So get the local content suggestions settings, set it to true, and then I can point it to where I want to get my suggestions from. And in this case, I said my app is going to be showing pictures from my pictures library. So I want content suggestions based on the content of my pictures library. And I can further specify I only want content suggestions based on pictures, not any other type of file that's saved there. So that's how I do that. I set an AQoS filter. And finally, just apply the settings. That's it. Now, before I run it, very important, I'm going to be trying to access the user's pictures library. Anytime an application tries to access the file system, you must declare it as a capability. The way to do that is to go to the package manifest file and go to capabilities, and that's it. Just check that I'm going to use picture library access. That's it. So now let's run my solution. When I swipe the edge and tap on search, as I start to type in birthday party, the same suggestion shows up. It was that seamless. So I didn't have to know that the user was typing in the search box because Windows took care of that for me, much like we are capturing and recording your search history. So this is just simply a setting. Throughout the course of my demo today, I've shown you things that you modify in the manifest file, certain things that you modify as settings. So what are all of them? Let me just pull them all together. The key set of changes that I made in the manifest was registering for search. And this was automatically done when I used the Visual Studio templates and said right-click, add the search contract template. The other declaration in the manifest was the file access capability. If I was going to supply local content suggestions, I needed to declare that capability in my manifest. Then there are a couple of things that were settings. Search history. Search history is a setting that's on by default for every app that registers for search. If you don't want this setting, you can go ahead and turn that off. The second setting was local content suggestions that I just showed you. And these were suggestions based on the content and metadata of my file system. And in order to enable that, I had to set that setting and also declare the file access capability. And the final setting is setting the placeholder text. I haven't gotten to that yet, and I'll show you that in just a little bit. And what's important to know is there are only 3 major search pane events you need to be aware of and make sure you register and implement. The first is search activation, and I showed you that. I'll go through the details of each of these events, so don't worry if you're not quite following along yet. The second is query submitted. And the third is suggestions requested, and this was when the user was typing in the search box, so your app has an opportunity to supply suggestions. Let's take a look at the search activation event. So the search activation event happens whenever the user chooses your application as one of the search locations in the search charm. So as you know, you might have heard from the earlier talks, the Process Lifetime Manager suspends your app if you're not the main app visible on screen. So you're not getting any system resources. And the way you get back to being the main app on screen is via activation. And there is a specific type of activation called search activation that occurs when the user selects your application from the search charm. So the user selects that, the search pane says, all right, let's activate the app. Your app gets the search activation event. And at this point, you have a choice to make. You get to say, well, did the user give me any query text? Because it's likely the user could have just been switching between apps and didn't enter anything in the search box. If there is query text, navigate to your search results page and show results for that. If there isn't, you just maybe want to load your previous state, because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to show an empty search results view for no query. The next event is query submitted. So query submitted happens whenever the user opens up the search charm while in your application. You've implemented the search contract, and they type in something and they hit enter. Or they've typed in something in the search box and they've selected one of those suggestions. In both of these cases, the search pane submits the query to your application. Your application gets the query submitted event, and again, in this case, you also have a choice to make. Has the query changed from the last time? Let's say you were already in your search results page. If the query did change, update the search results view and show the newer results for the new query. If it didn't change and it doesn't make sense because the user just did a search for that, you can just show the previous search results view and preserve the filters they might have applied. The third event is suggestions requested. And this happens whenever the user is starting to type in the search box. The first thing we do, remember, because we automatically capture history for you, is we show all the history that matches what the user typed. Then we tell the app, hey, apps, you now get to supply suggestions to the search charm. Your application gets the suggestions requested event. And again, there's a choice to be made here. Do you want to handle this asynchronously? If you're supplying suggestions from a static list, likely no. So all you have to do is add your suggestions to the search suggestion collection, and they automatically show up below the search box. But let's say you are going to make a web service call. You call request deferral, add your suggestions to the search suggestion collection, and finally, remember, important, complete deferral to indicate you're done supplying suggestions, so then we can show it in the search pane. So let me quickly recap the 3 steps. I promise 3 easy steps to implementing the search contract. First step, register for search. This was automatically done because we use the Visual Studio templates. But if you want to do it yourself, you absolutely can. It's just a small bit of markup to add, or you could use the Visual Studio package manifest file and use that editor to modify that. The next thing is to register for 3 important events: search activated, query submitted, and suggestions requested. Visual Studio, when I use the search template, automatically did search activation and query submitted. So you can maybe follow along there if you just want to look at quick guidance of how to do that. If you're going to register for the suggestions requested event, you must supply suggestions. And remember, if you're providing result suggestions, the one with the thumbnail and the title, register and respond to the result suggestion selected event so that you know the user selected a result, take them to the details of that result. There are a couple of tips I want you to keep in mind when you're implementing the search contract and when you handle all these various events. So search activation is not necessarily a one-time startup of your application. So what you don't want to do is put one-time startup logic in your activation handler. Examples of one-time startup logic could be things like registering for query submitted, registering for suggestions requested. Put all of that in your initialization code. When you're showing your search results view, you want to help the user get back to what they were doing before. And a simple and easy way to do that is just maybe using a back button. But let's say the user had invested some time in creating some content within your application. Let's say they'd partially composed a message and left your app, and at a later time you got activated for search. So your app got brought to the foreground as the main app on screen, and you were navigating to your search results view. Don't throw away the work the user did previously. Maybe save that message as a draft so they can easily get back to. Do what's appropriate for the content in your application. Oops. One more thing to keep in mind. If you are the snapped app on screen, and if just to recall, help you jog your memory, the snapped app is the smaller app on screen that can appear on the right or left edge. When you get search activation, we automatically make you the main app on screen. So because we make you the main app on screen, you're likely going to get another event fired back to you called try and snap. Don't use that event to navigate away from your search results page. Continue to show the user the search results for which your app was activated. And the search charm makes it easy for users to quickly switch between different apps and see results in there. And as a result of this, they might have seen search results in your app, applied a set of filters and narrowed the results set down to something that they finally found that they want. And now they're going to switch over to another app really quickly to see what that app has to offer. And maybe they come back to your app again. At that point, you don't want to redo the search and throw away all the filters that the user just applied, right? It's the same query. Try and preserve the filters where it makes sense. Now let's look at some of the customizations you can take advantage of when building in your apps. The first thing is placeholder text. And I talked about this earlier, and I said it's a setting. You want to use the placeholder text as a form of hint. It's the hint text that's shown in the search box for the type of content users can search for. And in this example, the comp that I'm showing right now, it says places near me, because the Near Me app helps me search for locations near where I am. The placeholder text is automatically cleared when the user starts typing, so you don't have to worry about handling all of this when you get your query text from the event args. Setting the placeholder text is pretty easy. It's just a property on the search pane. Just pass in the string that you want to show in the empty search box. Another customization you can take advantage of is called separators. And in this view, this application has decided to supply both query suggestions and result suggestions and wants to meaningfully group them, right? And separators are a great way to do that. When you're using separators, provide a label so the groups are clear. And how you provide separators is the same way as you add suggestions to your search suggestion collection. So you add your set of suggestions you want to show up in the search suggestion collection in the order, and then call append search separator, provide the group label, and then continue to supply additional suggestions as needed. So we've talked about some customization so far. Let's just look at the overall best practices when you're building great search experiences. The first thing, of course, is the question, should your app integrate with search? Let's go back to what Jensen talked about during the keynote. Just because we have a lot of great contracts, it's not a good checklist just to run through. But a very good rule of thumb for search, because it is quite common, is are you going to be implementing search in your app anyway? If so, yes, absolutely, integrate with search. What you want to do is use the search charm. Don't draw a search box in your app or build additional Chrome. If you're trying to build something like a find in doc functionality, like you'd see in a PDF reader, you probably don't want to integrate with search, because that's not search. That's more of a different pattern called find. If you're a game or a novelty app or a utility app like Calculator or Weather, search is probably not very meaningful for you. When we talk about search results layout, I touched on this earlier, there are just two common ways of doing it. It's either a list or a grid. And the one important distinction to know about Metro-style apps when you're using your control, when you're drawing grids, is the reading order goes from top to bottom, left to right. If you use our list view control, you automatically kind of get all of this Windows 8 look and feel into your app. Now, the search charm itself is very lightweight. It gets out of the way the minute the user starts interacting within your application. But what you want to avoid doing is putting the most relevant or important result on the right edge, because it might get occluded by the search pane, and the user might be just switching between apps and glancing to see if there are results there. When you show your search results view, give users a way to get back to what they were doing. And the template already does this for us. You'll notice the template inserted a back button. That's a great way to get the user back to what they were doing. But if you need to save state or save data, make sure you do that. You also want to indicate what the user searched for in the search results view itself. In both of these cases, the template already provided results for and the query text, because it's a good way to give them context. Indicate the number of results you have, too. It's a nice additional bit of information so the user knows how much information they're going to have to sift through. Filters are absolutely essential when you're providing search results, because if you have a large data set, in order to make it a meaningful experience where they can quickly get down to just the one or two items that users may want to look at, filters are a great way to do that. Indicate the number of results next to each filter, so it's that additional context or information they can use to parse. Are they going to continue to expand their search, or are they going to be refining it? And if you provide filters, give them a way to get back to seeing all results, or just clear the filters. I've talked about providing suggestions quite a bit during my talk. I hope you got that it's quite important. As you're typing in the search box and the user's typing there, your app needs to feel responsive to the user's input. And suggestions are a great way to connect with the user and help them auto-complete the terms for which you're going to show results in your app. Another important reason for also providing query suggestions is touch typing can be a little bit painful. So you want to help them quickly auto-complete that as easily as possible while they're typing. You can use result suggestions as a means of getting users quickly and efficiently to the most relevant or important result within your application. So please remember, when designing your application, really strongly consider providing suggestions. And don't worry if you're going to be searching over content over the PC. The local content suggestions features that I just showed you helps power your search experience in your app if you want to do that instead. So let's quickly recap all the things that I've talked about. Implementing the search contract makes your app searchable from anywhere in the system. And the search charm is contextual, so it's also the same experience for searching within your application. That means you just have to design one search experience that's universally accessible. You don't have to worry about building one to integrate with the search charm and one to search within your application. And finally, all the best practices that I just walked you through when designing great search experiences have already been incorporated as part of the Visual Studio templates that I'm using. It's a great way to get started, and you can definitely modify the templates to suit the type of content you're showing, but it automatically starts you off with a great Windows 8 Metro app style look and feel. So all of the samples I showed you today were in JavaScript, but there's a couple of great related sessions you can go check out. The first one is building Metro-style apps using XAML. This session happened yesterday, and I know they showed you a couple of code samples on how to integrate with a search contract if you're building a XAML app. Another one is building data-driven collection and list apps using HTML5. And this one goes into the details of the list view data source and the item renderer, et cetera. So it's a great talk to check out if you missed it. Definitely go catch the video. Now, there are a couple of other charms we've been talking about throughout our keynote and all these sessions. And all the charms talks are going to be happening in this ballroom today over the course through the rest of the afternoon. Check out the Share Your App, Share Charm talk that's happening at the, this afternoon in here. Also, integrating with the Windows device experience is another charm talk. I highly recommend you check it out and see if it's applicable to what you're doing. And finally, how to declare your app's capabilities. I've shown you a couple of things where I modified the manifest file. A great talk goes into the types of capabilities apps can take advantage of and how you can declare them. So I walked you through some code samples today. I'm not going to be sharing that out, but the very same snippets are easily available using our SDK samples called Adding Search. And we provided samples in JavaScript, C#, and C++. There's a great article called Windows Application Contracts that kind of gives you the overview of the charms and the contracts in the system. So please go take a read of that. And finally, there's the Search API reference, which is the complete set of APIs we offer. Thank you all for coming. I hope this session was a little bit informative and got you started on thinking about contracts and how to integrate with charms. We'd love to hear feedback from you, and if you have questions, definitely use this forum. And please provide session feedback as well. We'd like to know how we can continue to help you guys as you build your apps. So now my colleagues and I are just going to pack up and head directly over to the Expo booth. So please come find us there. We'll be at the Building Great Apps session. Thanks for coming, guys.